Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm happy to be in Colombia today. Figured we'd give you a nice wide shot to see the cool jungle mountain background here, because we're taking a look at a uniquely Colombian service pistol. This is the Cordova, manufactured by Indumil, the Industria Militar. It's the one factory slash company that has the monopoly on arms production here in Colombia. Also monopoly on explosives. It's sort of think of government-run alcohol sales in a lot of places in the world. Well, that's what arms production and sales are like here in Colombia. At any rate, the Colombian military wanted its own domestic production handgun to use for both military and domestic security agencies, the police, the private security groups, that sort of thing. Rather than continuing to import guns from out of the country, they wanted to design and build their own. And so in the late 2000s, circa 2009, 2010, development began of this pistol at Indumil. The first production took place about 2014, and they've been continuing to iterate and improve and develop the pistol ever since. As of this filming, they've produced about 23,000 of these. So this isn't an experiment. This isn't a boutique small production run. This is a gun that they're pretty serious about. Now, courtesy of Javier at Traba Pistolas, cool Colombian-based Spanish-language gun channel, we have a really nice, somewhat customized example of a Cordova here that we can take a look at. So, I know the pistol's pretty small in order for me to give you the cool jungle. So let's zoom in and take a closer look at this. Fundamentally, the Cordova is basically it is a modern polymer frame steel slide. It is hammer fired, which is a little bit of bucking the trend these days. It's not a striker-fired gun. The action is standard Browning tilting barrel. So short recoil, when the slide starts to move backward, the barrel moves with it, then tilts down to unlock, and then cycles. Locks open on an empty magazine. Standard magazine capacities are 15 rounds and 9 rounds. This is a 9-rounder based on Colombian private gun ownership law. Maximum you're allowed to have is a 9-round magazine. So they make mags that are blocked at 9 for civilian sales, but the standard is 15. Taking a look at the markings, we have Cordova, and this is named, by the way, after José María Córdova, who was sort of one of the founding fathers of Colombia. He was a military general who was heavily involved in the fighting for Colombian independence, as well as kind of the general South American independence movements to get rid of the Spanish in the early 1800s. So that's where the name comes from. And then it's marked Estandar. This is the standard model. It has a 4-inch barrel to it. It's the standard pattern. There is also a compact with a 3-inch barrel and a tactical with a 5-inch barrel and ventilated slide. Up on the front here we have Indumil Colombia. Indumil is the name of the factory, Industria Militar. And we have the Indumil logo on the grip as well. The serial number is internal here because if you see these two pins, the Cordova actually uses basically a fire control unit style of modular assembly, where the serialized part is in fact the internal one, much like a SIG 320. Interestingly, Indumil actually developed this independently before the SIG 320 was widely in service in sale. Anyway, the number here, the first 2 digits are the year of production. The last 6 digits are the serial number. So this is a 2015 model. This is a pretty early one. 2377 is the serial production total. Like I said, today they're up to in the 23,000s. And of course, new production ones are 23 and then 0 and the serial number. The serial number is also on the barrel and the slide. Pretty standard, typical stuff. It is kind of funny to me that even down here in Colombia, something that we think of as a uniquely kind of annoying American thing, read manual before using the arm. They basically have to put that on there for legal protection down here as well. All right, so here's one cool bit of just aside trivia. Cordova, there's an accent on the first O, was incredibly young. He enlisted in the Colombian military, what would become the Colombian military at the age of 14, and he was a general by the age of like 17 or 18. Really impressive. But he enlisted as a minor, and his name was actually Cordova with a B. And when he went to enlist, his father threatened to disinherit him if he enlisted. And so his clever solution was to just change his name on the army rolls. And he just changed the B to a V, and Cordova became Cordova. And that's the name that stuck. That's the name he obviously became famous with, and that's what's on the pistol. If we look at this from the big picture, pretty much all of the features of the Cordova are things that we've seen on other pistols. There are a few sort of unique combinations of features here, but it's not like this is a pistol that introduces some completely new, fancy, innovative solution or technical element. What it is a very well-produced combination of elements, well-known and proven elements, to make a domestic pistol. So I see a fair amount of influence here from a lot of Israeli designs. We certainly see a little bit of an aesthetic influence from the Jericho. Colombia has a long-standing working relationship with Israel and with IWI, Israeli Weapon Industries. They've bought Jerichos. Indumil actually has licensed production of the Israeli Galils. And I see some of that carryover as well in the frame mount and the slide mounted safety. I think a lot of people in the US would look at this and say, oh, well, you want the safety on the frame, not on the slide. Colombia went with the slide mounted safety. And I think a lot of that is the influence from, well, frankly, both Beretta and also IWI with guns like the Jericho. One thing that I like here is that all of the controls, with the exception of the slide release, are completely ambidextrous. So the safety, which is also a decocker, of course, that is ambidextrous. The magazine release is somewhat unusual. This is probably the most unusual element of the pistol, in that it pushes forward to release. So take that out. That is your magazine release. And I initially was doing it one-handed, with just a thumb or with a finger there. But you can actually do it, as Javier pointed out to me, you can do it with both thumb and forefinger, and it's quite quick, quite positive, works really nicely. And this is a design that I don't think I've seen anywhere else. I also do want to point out a few of the features on here that are not factory standard. This pistol has been stippled to improve the grip texture a bit. It has nice modern tritium sights. Standard production comes with just basic 3-dot sights. The magazine well has been beveled out a bit to speed up reloading. And standard production ones have a lanyard attachment ring or a piece that comes down from the grip. And that's been removed because for a civilian owner, a lanyard kind of gets in the way. Now, these do have interchangeable backstraps. There are 3 different sizes of backstrap. So one of those features that I don't know how really useful it is, but we see that on a lot of modern pistols, and it's incorporated in the Cordova. Disassembly is quite simple. The easy way to do it is we'll drop the magazine. I'm going to then cock the hammer and then just pull this back until these 2 lines line up. And then you just push the slide stop through. This one's nice and easy to take apart. If it's not, you can whack it with a tool or the back of a magazine. Then the slide just comes right off the front. And in terms of the slide here, we really have a lot of standard, this should all look very familiar to someone who's familiar with modern semi-auto pistols. So guide rod, main spring, barrel, with the standard sort of Browning action link there. Inside the slide, we have a couple of recognizable features. This is the safety mechanism, or one of the safety mechanisms. This is spring-loaded, and as long as it is pushing down, the firing pin can't protrude out the front. So one of the components of the fire control group pushes that up when you pull the trigger, and only when you pull the trigger. That allows it to fire, prevents it from firing if the trigger is not being pulled. The way that the safety mechanism actually works is it just rotates, well, in addition to internally decocking the pistol, what this does is rotate the firing pin extension out of alignment with the rest of the firing pin and with the hammer. So you can drop the hammer on the gun when the safety is engaged, and there's just no way for it to hit the firing pin, and thus no way for it to discharge. One of the interesting looking elements in here is this second hoop, which seems a little bit extraneous. This is actually basically a leftover. Early iterations of the pistol had a full-length sort of dust cover here at the bottom of the slide. And the engineers at Indumil were concerned that the slide weight was a little too heavy, and what they did to rectify that was remove the material right in here. But they left this bit just to give it a little bit of residual strength there. So that's why you've got the interesting, sort of interesting aesthetic design feature there. Looking at the frame, we have, like I said, these two pins. Unfortunately, I don't have a set of pin punches out here, so I can't take this one out to show you, but I do have some footage from the factory that you can see here with the internal box. They call it the caja de mecanismo, the mechanism box, which is frankly an easier term to keep in mind than like SIG's fire control unit nomenclature. Anyway, that comes out. That is the serialized part with the little metal tag for the serial number there. There are a number of things I think people will be potentially concerned about with this, and one is it's all polymer rails. Well, in actuality, it's not. It looks like a fully polymer rail, but as you can see right here, this is actually, there's a steel insert for the first ½ inch or so of the slide rail there. Now, this pistol has something north of about 10,000 rounds through it, and you can see some of the polymer has actually chipped off, but because it is there's a steel insert in there, it is actually a much more durable part than you would think just looking at a brand new example. So that's nice. That was one of my initial concerns, is how durable is, polymer only slide rails? And the answer is it's great, because they're not actually polymer only. The trigger, I should also point out, that is in here is one of the metal triggers. They make these with both metal or polymer triggers. Polymer is the bit of a cheaper option. The metal trigger here is a nicer option. And that's part of what allows you to have a really nicely polished trigger pull to this. So the Colombian Special Forces, several elements of them, do in fact use the Cordova, and theirs have a few of these modifications to them: a metal trigger, a nicely polished fire control group, the tritium sights, etc. Of course, we have a Picatinny rail on the front of the slide there. I really like the fact that it's got a polymer dust cover to it, so you can cover that up when it's not in use. Keeps things a little cleaner, a little smoother. I like that feature. It'd be kind of nice if more people did something a bit like that. But if you want a light or something else attached to the pistol, you've got the space to do it there. One of the cool elements, actually there are several cool elements on the barrel that are all indicative of actually really a higher standard of quality and manufacture than a lot of people would probably expect, is the fact that the barrel is hard chromed, both externally and internally. And this was done because there are a number of regions of Colombia that are near the ocean and have very salty, highly corrosive environments, and so they decided to give the barrel some extra corrosion protection. If we look at the muzzle here, you'll notice it also has a really nice recessed crown machined in from the factory. That's the sort of thing that you don't generally find on, sort of cheaper mass production service pistols. So that's cool. One of the funny elements here, at least to me, the rifling twist in the Cordova barrel is 1 in 8, which is not really the norm for 9mm pistols, and that was done actually because the Galil uses a 1 in 8 twist, and that's the tooling and the standard that the factory had, and so they just went ahead and continued to use it for the pistols. In fact, actually, there are a lot of elements. In some ways, all of the elements of the Cordova are carried over from the Galil. This is a factory that was producing the Galil. And so when they go to make their first new pistol, what sort of materials and design elements are they going to take? Well, we need to make the slide out of forged and milled steel. This is, in fact, made from a forging. What steel do we use? Well, let's use the same steel that we're using for the Galil receivers, which is a really good high-quality steel. We need to make polymer parts for it. How are we going to do the polymer? Well, we're also making polymer parts for the Galil upgrade sets for the Colombian Army. So we have all of the injection molding tooling, and we know how to make good glass fiber reinforced polymer. So that's what goes into the frame. Also, why do we make the internal fire control box here out of polymer? Again, polymer is something that they have good expertise on from doing the Galils. Even to some aspect of the caliber. This is not designed technically for 9mm Luger. It's designed specifically around NATO standard 9mm, which is kind of high pressure by some standards. So the barrel's actually a little reinforced here. another aspect here, the magazines. What are we going to make the box magazines out of? Well, this is the exact same sheet steel that they use to make Galil box magazines. So kind of cool that all of the influences on this come from a rifle that has a really good reputation, and it's a rifle that Colombia has been using for many decades in really some of the harshest conditions you can think of, and with a combat tempo that's really pretty substantial. Colombia, of course, has had problems with guerrilla terrorism for many decades now, and their military gets out there and actually uses not just the pistols, but, well, not just the Galils, but also now the Cordova pistols. More so than a lot of other countries' militaries actually see active combat. It's been really cool to get a chance to take a look at a pistol like this that is basically completely unavailable anywhere outside Colombia. Who knows, someday maybe these will get imported into the US. It's a neat gun. Does it do anything that's totally different and special and unique? No, but it's neat to see. Frankly, I like seeing countries develop their own independent domestic production, to have just that element of military self-reliance. And it's neat to see what different countries come up with for a set of combination of features. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Again, a big thanks to Javier at Traba Pistolas. If you are in South or Central America, if you're Spanish speaking and you want to see more about some of the pistols that are available to the civilian population as well as the security services down in this part of the world, definitely check him out. I'll have a link in the description text. Thanks for watching.